So today we're going to be going over measuring inflation and kind of go in depth of what that is. We're going to be talking about what is core inflation and what is headline inflation and how those show the effect that inflation has on the economy in different ways. We're also going to talk about what causes inflation in the short run, more specifically, what two things can change the price level in the short run. Um, and speaking of those two things, we're also going to talk about what is demand pull inflation and what is cost push inflation. So, what is core inflation? This measures price changes, not counting food and energy costs, which are traditionally volatile. It is also the Bureau of Labor Statistics measure of changes in prices through the Consumer Price Index. It is used because changes in prices due to goods and volatile prices might only reflect shocks to individual product markets rather than economy-wide inflation. So, an example of this would be in 2018, the price of gasoline dropped by 10%, while core inflation was a positive 2.4%. So, headline inflation, however, measures changes in prices for all the goods, which is including what we took out before for core inflation, which was like food and energy costs, which just gives a more complete picture of how changing prices affect the average consumer, as those play a big part in how much a person can consume. If those prices go up, it changes consumption power for most. Um, so it kind of just gives a better picture on how the changes in prices affect an average consumer. Whenever economists want to find the underlying rate of inflation in the economy, they differentiate between headline and core inflation. So as you can see here on the right, core inflation is just these four right here, while taking out food and beverages, fuel and light, which take a big toll on the average consumer. So that's what headline inflation includes as well. So, as for inflation in the short run, the price level can change temporarily by two things. These two things being demand pull inflation and cost push inflation. So, we'll get into that a little deeper in the next slides. So, demand pull inflation can be described as sudden shocks in demand. Um, Basically, when an economy goes through a boom, it causes inputs to become scarce and wages um, go up in order to attract more workers, because it's harder to find workers in a time like this. Oftentimes, the prices need to increase as too much money is being spent chasing too few goods. So, in other words, when demand for goods increases and exceeds production capacity. So, as you can see here, the demand is increasing um, due to the economic boom, and therefore they're needing more workers and increase of prices, all those things. What is cost push inflation? So, this is sudden supply shocks to a key resource in production. Basically, when rising prices cause firms to increase prices in order to maintain profits. So, in other words, when production costs rise and the producers pass the increase on to customers. A serious bout of cost push inflation occurred in the mid 1970s in the United States when the OPEC, which is the organization that controls most of the world's supply of oil, decided to cut the amount of oil it produced. This shortage caused an increase in the price of oil, and an increase in the price of oil increased the price of goods throughout the economy. So there's a chain going on there. So as you can see here, due to the increase in prices for the resources needed for production, supply decreased, and they eventually end up increasing the prices for consumers as well. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that this was helpful, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.